Now let's cross to our reporter Ayanda Mhlongo, who has been monitoring developments around Estcourt. Ayanda, thank you so much for your time. Now I know much earlier today there was some violence in the area, but when we spoke to you a short while ago, it was starting to calm down. What's the latest there now?
Afternoon, Unati. Good afternoon to our viewers once again. Yes, it's still a calm. Unati, we have been just driving around to some of the areas that we were at throughout the course of the day, where there were blockages and protests by angry supporters of former President Jacob Zuma, who, as we know, of course, have been calling for him to be released from the Estcourt Correctional Center. It is calm now, and we have been trying to speak to our sources in and around the area, because one of the concerns, Unati, was that, and as you heard there from Brigadier J. Naika, a spokesperson for the police in KwaZulu-Natal, that he was saying that these community members seem to be very strategic in how they were disrupting the roads and how they were protesting. So they would come to an intersection like where we are now. In the morning, this is one of the areas that was blocked off. This is the R103 leading into Estcourt. We're just about a stone throws away from the Estcourt correctional facility where former President Jacob Zuma is incarcerated at the moment. And so what we've picked up from this strategy is, for example, here this morning they blockaded the road for a few hours, and as soon as the police then moved closer to the area and began to start clearing the rubble from the road, they then moved away to another area. And so this has been the pattern throughout the day, that we arrive at the area, they are protesting, and within minutes they've then left and moved on to another area. But so far it seems that it is quiet. But I must say, Unati, some of the people that we're speaking to, the concern is what is going to happen overnight. It is quiet now, but as soon as it gets dark, is there not going to be a situation where these protesters are coming out and we see scenes that we saw last night in Moy River? Of course, it's easier for these protesters to come at that night. It's more difficult as well for the police to be able to move around and maneuver when it's in the dark. So basically, we are now, waiting to see what is going to happen tonight, and that is what the concern is. Around the town, yes, it is a Saturday, but we've also noted that a lot of the businesses, very, very few now that had opened, are still opening. A lot of the businesses that were open as we traveled through the town here in Estcourt have now closed, and saying that they wanted their workers to at least be able to get home while it's still light and while it's still safe for them to do so. Not sure, as I've said, what is going to happen overnight. So I must say, Unati, there is a great deal of fear from local businesses and some local community members as to what might happen tonight.
And that fear, Ayanda, is probably driven by the fact, as you call it, the pattern of the protesters. And I think Brigadier J. Naika called it almost like playing a cat and mouse game, because they would come out sporadically, at times when they don't know. But Ayanda, perhaps let me, get your insights on this. We know that President Cyril Ramaphosa, through his spokesperson, has condemned these protests. The ANC has also come out very strongly condemning what is happening in KZN, as well as the KZN Premier. How much of the leadership that we are seeing is actually as a result of these protesters now pulling back somewhat?
Well, insofar as, comments and concerns that have been raised by the leaders in government, within the ANC, it really doesn't seem to have had much of an impact. It's seemingly that their message is falling on deaf ears. I mean, you'd note that since yesterday, the Premier of KwaZulu-Natal, again through his spokesperson, Lennox Mabaso, had already been calling for calm. In fact, you'd know, insofar as the ANC is concerned, I mean, even last week, they decided to deploy say several senior leaders, members of the National Executive Committee of the ANC, to be on the ground here in KwaZulu-Natal, basically to liaise with the leaders of the ANC in KwaZulu-Natal to try and monitor the situation, but to ensure that there is a stability and no violence. That seemingly has not helped. We've seen the violence that has happened here today and yesterday across the province of KwaZulu-Natal. So seemingly the calls are falling on deaf ears. I mean, insofar as President Cyril Ramaphosa, many of the people here were saying that they want to see better leadership from the president. They want the president to come out to address the supporters. But whether or not this time around, the fact that he has now issued a statement, we're just going to have to wait and see whether or not the message now from President Cyril Ramaphosa is going to have any effect, whether or not people are going to at least listen to what he is saying. We're just going to have to wait and see. But taking into account what we've seen over the past couple of days with their own leaders here in the province calling for calm, and protesters completely disregarding that, one cannot be certain how they're going to react. But from speaking to the community members, Unati, they want one thing and one thing only, and that is to see former President Jacob Zuma released from prison. And they have threatened that they're going to continue and intensify the violence.
Now, Ayanda will be speaking to the Institute for Security Studies in a moment, and one of the questions that I'll be posing to them is why South Africans resort to violence as a form of protest. What are they telling you, though, Ayanda, on the ground? What are the community members saying? I mean, it's one thing to protest, but it's another thing to destroy some of the infrastructure that is servicing that very community.
Yeah, it's been disappointing, Unati, on that point, and a very important question that you are raising. Very disappointing, some of the attitudes and comments that have been coming from the community. To say that, yes, some will say that their leaders don't listen and violence is the only way for them to get the attention of their leaders. But when we further probe them as to the destruction of property, because ultimately the danger of what is happening now is that it's going to simply scare away business. There's huge concerns about the economy. I mean, currently the situation that we're in and the lockdown has had a severe impact on the economy. And if they continue with this type of behavior, people are going to lose their jobs. But, disappointingly, I'd say that from some of the community members that we've spoken to, saying that they simply do not care about that. They're saying that it's the government that has placed them in this position by deciding to sentence an old man who has done nothing wrong except to fight for his own rights. And they believe that if the former President Jacob Zuma did not want to appear before the Commission to State Capture, then they support that decision. So it has, Unati, been rather disappointing what the comments and response from the community members are. I must say, though, that not everybody. There are those that are saying, no, indeed, violence of any nature cannot be allowed. And those are then saying that they're now calling on the leaders in government and the leaders in the ANC to try and put an end to this situation. They do understand the situation that the country is in terms of the economy, and they too are fearful that if this continues, it's going to scare away investors, businesses are going to shut down, and ultimately, once all of this is said and done, it's the ordinary people that are desperate for jobs that are the ones that are going to suffer the most. So different views, I must say, Unati. Some, yes, not happy with the violence, support the former president, though, and the calls for him to be released, but saying that at least the protesters should find another way to vent their frustrations. And then on the extreme, there are those that are saying violence is the only way that the leaders of this country will be able to listen to them. Unati?
Ayanda, thank you so much for your time and for that report.